Hello and welcome to today's video. My name is Jeannie. In today's video, I'm going to talk about something different from my other content. I want to talk about money. This is something that I've really been diving into for the last couple of years. And recently I started playing with this affirmation. Before, a while ago, I really had trouble with affirmations. I didn't understand them. I didn't understand why. There were a lot of things about affirmations that weren't quite clicking. I have gate 61, so gate 61 kind of tends to want to know, why am I doing this? Otherwise, it kind of feels empty. It just feels, I don't know, what's the point? I don't understand. So once I started to understand why we use affirmations and what it is that they do, they actually started becoming more fun, and I started having a much better outcome by using affirmations. I was going to say experiences. My experience with affirmations started improving a lot. So recently, I have been struggling with the money thing, and after asking for a lot of guidance, I'm starting to see where it is that I've been messing up a little bit. So I started playing with this affirmation in particular, and the affirmation is, I will not judge the way in which money makes its way to me. Because I started thinking about how I have been, in a way, judgmental about how money, or it's not that, it's I've been not, I think I haven't been creating enough space for money to come to me in new ways. So in a way that has to do with judgment, I feel like money should only come in through this or that way. So I'm okay, that affirmation just kind of came to me. I will not judge the way in which money makes its way to me. So I said that affirmation just a couple of times, and I just started contemplating that. And within, I don't even remember how long it was. It might have been no more than a week. Maybe it was just the next day or within a day or two. I get a text message from my aunt, and she's checking in on us, asking how we are, and she's telling me how she's doing. And then towards the end of her message, she says, by the way, send me your bank account information so that I can send you money. So I start answering her messages. I'm telling her how we are, asking her how her health is doing and things like that. And then I ask her, was that last message for me, the one about the money? And she's like, yeah. And then I answer back, I'm like, why do you want to send me money? I don't understand. And then she's like, well, I don't know, so that you can use it for whatever you want. If you want to treat yourself, if you want to save it for in case of an emergency, whatever you want to do with the money, that's up to you. I've been asking your aunt, and nobody knows how to set up an account, so if you can find out how to set up an account, I will send you the money. And after she said that, I started to remember this affirmation that I said, I will not judge the way in which money makes its way to me. And I realized how, in that moment, I was judging the way money was trying to get to me, because in my mind, I thought, okay, this is my aunt, for pretty much my entire childhood. I always remembered and really was very aware that my mom would send my grandmother and this aunt in particular money, because this aunt never married. She was the one that took care of my grandmother up to the point of her death. And this aunt currently, like I said, she's been having a lot of health issues. And in my mind, I guess I thought that she didn't have money to be sending me like that. And I didn't even know how much she was planning to send. I still have to look into, because she's in Mexico, and it's so much easier to send money to Mexico than from Mexico to here. I think I haven't been able to find an easy way, so that's kind of been on hold. But I saw how I was judging, the way money was trying to make its way to me, because I had these beliefs of can she really afford to help me? There were feelings of I'm taking away from her, when in reality, all my life I was taught and role modeled that she was the one that needed more help. She was the one that needed more financial support and things like that. So that experience really helped me be able to see at a closer level what my beliefs about money were, all the judgments I had around money. So there was that experience. And then recently I started playing with this affirmation again. And this time, I'm trying to remember what happened. Oh, I remember. My brother asked me if I could print a shipping label for him because my account with the post office allows me to print first class mail and his doesn't for whatever reason. I don't know why. But I can print those types of labels and he can't. So he's like, please print this label for me and I will send you the money. Now, the label turned out to be like less than $4. And I said to him, you know what, don't worry about it at all. Like, it's no big deal. He's been selling online as well. We share the same account. And I actually haven't been giving him his payout because all that money has been going towards bills and rent and, like, you know, our basic survival type of needs. And I've been feeling really guilty about that, but I've also kind of noticed, like, well, the money's not coming in. Like, what am I doing? What am I doing wrong? And things like that. So I thought, okay, you know, basically everything he's making is going towards bills. Well, through the reselling he does of other forms of selling, and he keeps that. But also, like, all the money I make goes towards bills. So there was this belief of, like, it's okay if all my money goes towards bills, but it's not okay if his money goes towards bills. There was a judgment there. So anyways, going back to the label, I was feeling guilty because he hadn't received a payout in a really long time. And I'm like, I'm not going to be petty over $4. So I told him, like, really, don't worry about it. It's nothing. And then I went to go get ready, and then I walked by his room, and he's like, check your phone and make sure you got the money I sent you. I'm like, but I said it was okay. He's like, just go check it. And when I go check my phone, he ended up sending me $50. And I'm like, honey, that was way too much. Like, it really was no big deal. But he had kind of, like, already noticed and seen that, like, that I was starting to stress out about money, because sales felt like they were quite low again. I had to tap into savings. Savings are starting to feel like they're getting smaller and smaller. So yes, I was very stressed out because I'm like, after all the money work I've done, like, I'm still here. Like, what the hell is going on, you know? So he says to me something along the lines of, like, you know what, there's more where that came from. Just relax, because when your energy tends to really, really impact the flow of money for us. So if we need to get your vibes up, we need to get your energy settled and calm. Otherwise, you know, then we're really going to be in a pickle. So I'm like, okay, yeah, you're absolutely right. But I found myself judging of, like, oh my gosh, that's too much money. And it's coming from my brother. It's not okay that it's coming from my brother because he needs money too. There was this belief of, like, he doesn't have enough. He can't give me money, not that much money, because, you know, he's going to run out. So again, this affirmation was allowing me to get a closer look at what beliefs were still there. Mainly, like, people are not going to have enough. I'm not going to have enough. It's okay for me to sacrifice myself, but it's not okay for other people to sacrifice themselves. It's okay for me to help other people, but it's not okay for them to help me. So I'm like, oh, okay, I'm starting to see what's underneath the hood, you know? Just by this affirmation, I will not judge the way in which money makes its way to me. Another thing that I noticed once I started creating more awareness on what this affirmation was doing for me, how it was helping me do the inner work, is that I realized that I was starting to receive offers. Now, I'm not a huge fan of offers, and at the same time, I've kind of gotten to the point where I'm like, I have so much inventory. Like, is an offer really going to be such a bad thing? I think that's, like, I don't know, a little bit of stubbornness around my prices, but I'm kind of getting to the point where I'm like, I want more space. Like, it's okay. Like, offers are fine. But before, what I was noticing is that, like, I would get offers, but because my energy wasn't quite okay with offers, there would always be an issue with the sale. There would be a return, or if there wasn't a return, there wasn't positive feedback, things like that. So as I started kind of tweaking the energy, every time I saw there was something that I didn't quite love about a transaction. For example, like, I sold an item and someone complained that the color was off. Now, color is one of those things that it can very well be based on perception. For me, the item looked like this blush pink, and they were arguing that it was a peachy pink. It was more orange than pink. I'm like, well, I disagree. I do have a disclaimer that colors can appear different, blah, 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 all of that. So there, I kind of found myself feeling like I had done something wrong, which is another pattern that I have noticed before. But this time, instead of allowing my energy to plummet and go into like, oh my gosh, they're gonna leave bad feedback, I'm gonna have to pay for return shipping and all these things, I switched over to the energy of holding a boundary of like, the item looks pink. I don't have a return policy, and I understand that it didn't meet your expectations. However, I do not take returns for that reason. And they ended up like not filing a return, and they also ended up just leaving neutral feedback, which for me it feels a little less worse than negative feedback. But I'm like, okay, I'm starting to see how the energetics of this can be played with. Because before, like I said, there would be fear. There would be like, oh my gosh, like how is this going to impact other things? And now I shifted over from like, okay, what if I, instead of me thinking that I'm such a bad person for not giving them a return, the guilt, it's just like a boundary. Like, I'm seeing my buyer as someone who is responsible. There's someone that's responsible. I am holding my boundary. It's not anything that is unreasonable by me holding this boundary. And I started to see how like my client, the type of client that I was attracting, changed, and their behavior also changed. So I thought that was very interesting. Now I notice that whenever I practice that affirmation, I am getting reasonable offers. So I'm like, okay, this is another way in which money can make its way through me, through offers. And how have I been judging the offers in the past? By creating stories about the type of buyers that send offers, by not seeing my buyers as responsible people who spend the money that they make in ways that feel good to them. Before, there was a lot of guilt around, oh, can people really afford to buy this? Am I being greedy by setting this price? But at the same time, like, whenever I did go lower on my price, either the item didn't sell, or again there was an issue with it, and it was because my energy wasn't behind that number. So I'm like, okay, because it's so easy for me to get in my head. I'm learning to use the feedback in my environment to see what needs to be tweaked on the inside. So offers is another thing that I like. When I do get an offer, I really feel into it. And sometimes I'll do a counter offer and they'll be like, yeah, they'll accept it. Other times I won't, and I'll trust that if they weren't my buyer. Other times it'll be a little bit less than what I had wanted, but it'll feel like a yes, and I'll trust that. So for right now, like, this affirmation has really been working for me. I will not judge the way in which money makes its way to me. And I wanted to share that in case you guys wanted to try it and experiment and play with it and see what beliefs it gives you more insights to. The other thing I wanted to mention about money was I was feeling this energy of like, I'm waiting for the money to drop in. And I came across this Instagram post. The Instagram post is by a money coach. Her name is Genevieve Rackham. I used to follow her a lot closer before. Then I realized that a lot of the things that they were sharing, I liked them, but they didn't quite work for me. And I think she's a generator. I'm pretty sure she's a generator. I'm a projector, so our energy works a little bit different. So I kind of like felt the nudge to like stop following so closely and kind of like tune in more into like, what does it feel like to me. But recently they did this post which had to do with this waiting energy, and it reads, if it feels like you're waiting to receive, this is a distortion pattern that creates lags in your experience of receiving. Here's how we clean this up so you can stop experiencing lags. And she says, I don't wait, I receive. I have an established momentum as a result of my frequency translating externally into my beautiful body of work, reaching more people, that there is a pretty consistent and consistence, I'm supposed to be consistent in flow, but when I'm in a moment where I'm not technically or actively receiving in the flow in the moment, I never feel like I'm waiting for someone or something. My energy is still in receiving. I'm receiving the moment fully. This changed everything and allowed me to not only deepen in my joy and pleasure for life, but also receive even more in many more moments. In her caption, she mentions, my energy is solid and activated, ready and fully cracked open to the now moment, which is where we always receive. There is no waiting, there is no lacking. There is operating in full receptivity, which leads to compound receiving tangibly. This changed everything and allowed me not only to deepen in my joy and pleasure for life, but also to receive even more in many more moments. So I read this and it wasn't quite clicking. I was like, okay, I'm starting to get it, but I could feel like the mental block or resistance of like, I kind of get it, but I also feel like I don't get it. So like, how can I see this differently? And sometimes like I get visuals, and kind of like the visual that dropped in was this conveyor belt. Or the other is like a movie. Like if you're watching a movie, like if I were waiting to watch a movie, it felt like I had hit pause. And the movie's not going to start playing until I hit either the play button or, hit the pause button again to get the movie moving, right? Or the conveyor belt. Like let's say there's a conveyor belt and I hit pause on the conveyor belt, it's not going to be moving. And let's say there are orders that are coming from like the other end of the conveyor belt, but as long as it's on pause, like the orders are never going to come across my awareness. So those examples, those visuals helped me kind of be able to understand what they were saying a little bit better. So it's like, oh, okay, I've been hitting pause on the conveyor belt instead of keeping it moving at all moments. And it's like the orders, because my work deals with shipping out orders and things like that. I don't know why the conveyor belt just dropped in. So I was like, okay, how I'm going to hit, unpause my conveyor belt and it's going to start moving again. And it's always moving. It's always moving. Like the potential to receive more orders, more sales is going to be higher, obviously, when the conveyor belt is moving, as opposed to where like I've paused it by waiting. I'm in the energy of waiting, and as long as I'm in the energy of waiting, I will always be waiting. So if my conveyor belt is unpaused and now it's continuously moving, it doesn't mean that I'm going to be receiving orders like every single minute or every single second, but the potential for them to come in is always going to be there because the conveyor is always moving. And then I went into kind of like this meditation or visualization process of kind of like, okay, how big is my conveyor belt? How wide is it? How fast is it moving? How far apart are the orders? Visually, like what am I getting? And how can I tweak it? Because then I realized, okay, my conveyor belt is moving at a pretty steady pace, because there's a little bit of fear of like, if too many orders come in, am I going to have the energy to fulfill the orders? And then that in itself is a limiting belief, because I could ask for help from my brother, or if the orders are really that big, like I have friends that I could totally ask, hey, help me ship this out, or like help me go drop it off. So I'm like, okay, let's erase that we don't have to consider that. So then, like, how big is the conveyor belt? And then I realized it wasn't very big. So I'm like, okay, let me make it bigger, because it's all imagination. And before, I used to have a really hard time, like, playing with my imagination, because I'm like, well, it's just imagination. It doesn't make it real. But the more you get behind, because it's literally like you can create anything with your mind, and then you'll start to see how your physical reality molds and shape shifts to kind of like what you're starting to picture. So if my conveyor belt was relatively small, what does that tell me about my availability to receive? It's small. So okay, what if I make the conveyor belt a little bit bigger? And I was open because I've seen enough of like how visualization works for me. So it's like, okay, let's make it bigger, and now it's moving a little bit faster. It's not going crazy fast, but it's going a little bit faster than where I had it. And the packages, before there was a huge gap between them, and maybe there was just one package at a time, but now I'm able to see 3-4 packages at a time, and the space between that bunch and then the other bunch has gotten smaller, where before it felt and seemed and looked a lot bigger. So okay, by doing that, by visualizing and holding it and feeling good about what I'm seeing and feeling and sensing, that's going to manifest in my reality. Now, if you decide to try this for yourself, like, look at where your limit is. Like, let's say, can I, if 100 packages at a time in a batch felt like too much, like I don't have to go for the 100, 20, 30 packages, if that's my limit, that's okay, that's what I play with. And then as I start seeing and getting more behind, putting my energy more behind that, like feeling confident that I've got it, that it's good, like nothing bad's gonna happen, I'm not doing anything bad, people are happy, people are using their money in ways that feel good to them, all those things. And if you notice that there's like For example, if 50 packages at a time mentally made me go like, whoa, hold up, let's pause the belt, the conveyor belt, that would let me know, okay, that's my limit. Let's go down a little bit, or see what can we tweak so that that 50 doesn't feel like I want to hit pause. Whether it means hiring more help, or tweaking something in my day so that it doesn't feel like a lot. And then with the distance, again, what's the fear in the packages getting closer and closer, or the bunch in packages? Does that make sense? Yeah. The batch, let's say batch, from each batch getting closer and closer together, what's the fear there? Will I have enough energy? Will I have enough support? Will this, will that, whatever it may be, So I've been really using that visual to really help me move out of the energy of waiting. And I wanted to share those 2 little tips for you guys to play with, and see how they're able to help you. So yeah, I think those were the 2 main things I wanted to talk about in this video. So I'm trying to keep these relatively short. If you have any comments, takeaways, or if you try, whether it's the affirmation or the visualization, and want to share what it is that happened, or what it is that came up for you, please feel free to comment down below. I love interacting with y'all through the comments. If you would like to follow along my journey a little bit closer, I am quite active on Instagram. My handle is at Jeannie Salcedo, mostly through stories. I really like sharing through stories. But there and on my website, you can find more information on different ways of working with me. And I'm also open to invitations if you guys feel like there's something that you'd like my guidance on, but it isn't quite, specifically on my website. I am open to chatting about that. I think that's it. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.